Look, I have been working security at the Galactic Summit for 7 cycles now, right? 7 cycles of checking delegates, scanning for weapons, making sure nobody smuggles in anything that goes boom. And in all that time, I thought I had seen everything. Spoiler alert, I had not seen anything yet. My name is Zrath, and my partner Kelvik and I were manning Checkpoint 7 on Station Taurus 9 when the humans showed up. Now, I had heard about humans, sure, everyone had. They were the newcomers, the latest species to stumble into galactic politics with their weird fleshy bodies and their even weirder sense of humor. But I had never actually met one in person. So there I was, minding my own business, running standard security protocols, when this human just strolls up to my checkpoint like he is heading to a vacation resort instead of a summit where half the delegates want to kill the other half. He is grinning, actually grinning, and carrying nothing but a briefcase. A briefcase. Not even a decent briefcase either, just some black rectangular thing that looked like it came from a museum. "Good morning," the human says. And his voice is so cheerful it makes my head tendrils ache. Beautiful day for invasive security screening, is it not? Kelvik and I exchange glances. My partner's eye stalks are doing that thing where they twist in confusion. I know exactly how he feels. "Name and designation," I say, trying to sound professional, and not like I am already tired of this conversation. "Marcus Webb, human diplomatic envoy, here to not get anyone killed, hopefully," he says, still smiling. Still smiling. Though I make no promises about property damage. I blink all 3 of my eyes in sequence. Did this human just make a joke about destruction at a security checkpoint? Oh, this is going to be a long day. "Step into the scanner, please," Kelvik says, his voice coming out in that flat tone he uses when he is trying very hard not to comment on something stupid. Marcus Webb steps into the full-body scanner, still grinning like someone told him a hilarious secret. The machine hums, does its thing, and then displays the results. I lean forward to read them, expecting to see the usual array of concealed weapons, armor plating, maybe some cybernetic enhancements. You know, the normal stuff that every sane delegate brings to a summit where assassination attempts are practically scheduled events. The scanner reads 0, 0 weapons, 0 armor, 0 augmentations, 0 defensive shields, 0 anything. I stare at the readout. I stare at Marcus Webb. I stare at the readout again. I say, which is not my most professional moment, but give me a break here. "Sir, are you aware that this summit has a, reputation for being somewhat dangerous?" "Oh, absolutely," Marcus says, stepping out of the scanner and straightening his jacket. It is just a jacket. A cloth jacket. No kinetic shielding, no ballistic weave, nothing. I read the briefing materials. Very thorough. Loved the part about the 16 assassination attempts at last year's event. Really set the mood. Kelvik's eye stalks are now twisted into a full pretzel shape. "And you decided to bring what, exactly?" he asks. Marcus holds up the briefcase. "Paperwork mostly. Oh, and a sandwich. Turkey and Swiss. Want half?" I want to scream. I want to file a report about human stupidity. I want to grab this smiling idiot and shake him until some sense falls out. Instead, I take a deep breath. Well, the Zilverian equivalent of a deep breath, and try again. "Mr. Webb, perhaps you do not understand. The Kryn Syndicate has operatives at this summit. The Talvexian Empire has mercenaries. The Ordation Collective has at least 3 known assassins registered as, quote, cultural attaches, end quote. Everyone here is trying to kill everyone else here." "Sounds lively," Marcus says. "Lively," he said, lively. Kelvik leans over to me. "Should we, I do not know, refuse him entry, for his own safety? I consider this. I really do. But regulations are regulations, and technically being unarmed and stupid is not against the rules. More is the pity." "You are cleared for entry," I say, stamping his credentials with probably more force than necessary. "Try not to die immediately." "I will do my best," Marcus says, giving us a little salute that somehow makes me even more concerned for his survival.
"You two have a wonderful day now."
He walks away whistling. Kelvik and I watch him go. "He is going to be dead within the hour," Kelvik says. 10 minutes, I counter. I am giving him 10 minutes, maximum. We were both wrong, but not in the way we expected. Alright, so let me give you some context here because you need to understand exactly how doomed Marcus Webb should have been. The Galactic Summit was not some friendly meet and greet where everyone shares snacks and talks about their feelings. No. This was serious business. High-stakes negotiations about trade routes, territorial disputes and resource allocation. The kind of summit where treaties got signed and empires rose or fell based on who said what to whom. And whenever you get that much power in one place, you get people who want to, let us say, influence the outcome through less than diplomatic means. Enter the Kryn Syndicate. Now the Kryn were bad news, wrapped in worse news, and topped with a garnish of terrible news. They were not even a legitimate government. They were a criminal organization that had somehow clawed their way into having a seat at the negotiating table through a combination of bribery, blackmail, and strategically timed explosions. Everyone knew they had sent assassins to the summit.
Everyone.
It was the worst-kept secret in the galaxy. Security had intercepted 3 separate kill teams already, and the summit had not even officially started yet. That is how serious this was. So when delegates started arriving, they came prepared. The Vrixian ambassador showed up in a full combat exosuit that could probably survive a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The Heltorian envoy had brought 4 bodyguards, each one augmented with enough cybernetics to qualify as a walking tank. The Quillian representative wore personal shielding so powerful that it actually interfered with our scanning equipment and gave Kelvik a headache. Every single delegate understood the assignment. Come armed, come armored, come ready to not die. Every single delegate except Marcus Webb. I watched him on the security monitors as he made his way through the main corridor toward the conference levels. He was still carrying that ridiculous briefcase, still walking with that casual stride like he was taking a stroll through a park instead of entering a war zone disguised as a diplomatic summit. Other delegates passed him in the hallway, and I could see their confusion even through the grainy camera feed. A few of them actually stopped to stare. The Vrixian ambassador, all 8 feet of armored intimidation, paused mid-step to watch Marcus walk by. I saw his helmet swivel to track the human's progress, probably running the same mental calculations I had run earlier. Unarmed plus dangerous summit equals dead human. Should we send someone to escort him? Kelvik asked, watching the same feed I was watching. Maybe assign him a protective detail. He refused one, I said, checking the manifest. Says he works better alone. I made a gesture of frustration with my upper tendrils. Humans, I swear they must have evolved without any sense of self-preservation. Or maybe they are just very, very stupid, Kelvik offered. That seems more likely. But here is the thing that was bothering me. The thing I could not quite put my tendril on. Marcus Webb did not look stupid. Suicidal. Maybe. Overconfident. Definitely. But there was something about the way he moved, the way he observed everything around him with those weird binocular eyes humans had, that suggested he was paying attention to more than we realized. I pulled up his file on my security terminal. Human.
Obviously.
Age 37 standard years, whatever that meant in human terms. Education at something called Oxford, which my translator insisted was a prestigious institution. Diplomatic service for 12 years. 3 previous postings to conflict zones. Commendations for, and I am quoting directly here, creative problem solving under pressure. That last part made my scales itch. Creative problem solving. That could mean anything from brilliant negotiation to, I do not know, talking his way out of execution or something equally ridiculous. I am going to keep an eye on this one, I told Kelvik, flagging Marcus's biosignature for tracking. Something about him does not add up. You mean besides the fact that he is walking into an assassination festival without so much as a pocket knife? Yes, besides that. On the monitor, Marcus reached the entrance to the main diplomatic wing. 2 guards checked his credentials, ran another scan just to be sure, and waved him through. He nodded politely to both of them, adjusted his tie, which I was now realizing was just a strip of cloth around his neck serving absolutely no protective purpose whatsoever, and stepped through the door. 10 minutes. Kelvik repeated. I wanted to argue, but honestly I could not. By all logic, all reason, all common sense, Marcus Webb should not survive the next hour. The Kryn had people inside. Everyone knew it. The question was not if they would strike, but when. And there goes our unarmed human, walking straight into the teeth of danger with nothing but a briefcase and a smile. I pulled up additional camera angles, making sure I had full coverage of the diplomatic wing. If this human was going to die on my watch, at least I would have clear footage for the incident report, and maybe, just maybe, I could hit the alarm fast enough to save him. Though honestly, I was not betting on it. Marcus Webb disappeared around a corner, heading toward the reception area where delegates were gathering before the official proceedings began. That briefcase swung at his side, like it did not have a care in the world. Humans, I muttered, shaking my head. Humans, Kelvik agreed. Neither of us had any idea what we were about to witness. So my supervisor decided in his infinite wisdom that since I had already met the human and clearly had not done enough to prevent his inevitable death, I should be reassigned to watch him specifically during the reception. Lucky me, right? I get to have front row seats to whatever disaster is about to happen. The reception hall was packed with delegates, all of them mingling and pretending they did not want to murder each other. The Vrexian was comparing armor plating with the Heltorian envoy. The Quillian representative was showing off her new personal shield generator to anyone who would listen. And there, right in the middle of it all, was Marcus Webb, chatting with a Talvexian trade minister like they were old friends. I positioned myself near the refreshment table, trying to look casual while keeping all three eyes on the human. My security scanner was discreetly tracking everyone within 10 meters of him. The Kryn had to make a move eventually, and I wanted to be ready. That is when I saw him. A server, wearing the standard station uniform, moving through the crowd with a tray of drinks. Nothing unusual, except my scanner flagged him immediately. Biosignature match, Kryn operative, confirmed assassin, wanted in 7 systems for murder and conspiracy. Oh, this is it, I thought. This is how the human dies. The Kryn agent approached Marcus with the tray, offering him a glass of something blue and sparkling. I reached for my communicator, ready to call it in, but then something strange happened. Marcus looked at the drink, looked at the server, and his smile got even wider. "Thank you so much," Marcus said, taking the glass. The Kryn agent nodded and started to move away, probably planning to watch from a safe distance while the poison did its work. But then Marcus did something that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. He stopped, sniffed the drink, actually sniffed it like some kind of animal, and then called out to the server. "Excuse me, sir. I think you gave me your drink by mistake." The Kryn agent turned back, confusion clear on his face. "No, that is yours, I assure you." "Oh, I insist," Marcus said, and before anyone could react, he smoothly swapped his glass with the one on the agent's tray. "This one smells much more like what I ordered. Yours has that lovely almond scent, very distinctive. You should enjoy it." The Kryn agent stared at his tray, stared at Marcus, looked down at the drink Marcus had just given him. And I watched, absolutely stunned, as the pieces clicked together in the assassin's head. The poison had an almond scent. Marcus had just given him back his own poisoned drink, and now everyone was watching. The agent's hand trembled. He could refuse the drink, which would confirm he was trying to poison someone, or he could drink it and, well, die. Some choice, right? "You know," Marcus said conversationally, sipping the safe drink he had just acquired, "I really hate it when people do not drink to a toast. It is terribly rude. Cheers." The Kryn agent, trapped by his own plan and probably panicking, reflexively took a sip. Just one sip. That was all it took. He collapsed about 15 seconds later, right there on the reception hall floor. Medical teams rushed over, but I already knew he was dead. You do not survive Kryn-grade poison, especially not when you designed it yourself to be untraceable and fast-acting. Marcus looked down at the body, took another sip of his drink and said, "Well, that is unfortunate. Someone should really teach better hospitality standards around here." I stood there, my translator working overtime, because surely I had misunderstood what just happened. But no. The human had just killed an assassin with nothing but a good nose and some incredibly bold social manipulation. I started taking notes, actual notes, because my incident report was going to be the most unbelievable thing I had ever written and I needed documentation. Marcus noticed me staring and walked over. "Everything all right, officer?" "How?" I said, and my voice came out at least 2 octaves higher than normal. "How did you know?" "The smell," Marcus said. Like this was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. Cyanide-based compound, right? We humans can detect that. Our olfactory system is surprisingly sensitive for a species that looks like we survive on determination and bad decisions alone. You smelled poison, I repeated flatly. Well, yes. Could you not? He seemed genuinely curious. Oh, right. Different biology. Sorry. I keep forgetting not everyone has the same sensory range. Anyway, is lunch soon? I am starving. He walked away, leaving me standing there with my notes and my completely shattered understanding of human survival strategies. Around the reception hall, other delegates were whispering, staring at Marcus with new expressions. Not pity anymore. Something else. Something that looked almost like respect. Or maybe fear. The unarmed human had just survived his first assassination attempt by outthinking a professional killer. And he wanted to know about lunch. I should have called it in. I should have reported what happened and requested a full protective detail for Marcus Webb. But honestly, I was too curious. This human had just done something that should have been impossible, and I wanted to see what he would do next. Also, my supervisor would never believe my report without more evidence. So really, I was just being thorough. That is my story and I am sticking to it. About 20 minutes after the poison incident, Marcus excused himself from the reception, saying he needed to retrieve some documents from his quarters. I watched him leave through the main doors and head down corridor 12, which was one of the longer hallways connecting the diplomatic wing to the residential sections. I pulled up the security feed on my portable monitor, tracking his progress. That is when I saw them. 3 Kryn warriors, full combat gear, plasma blades glowing that angry red color that meant they were set to lethal. They were positioning themselves at the far end of the corridor, clearly planning an ambush. Oh no, I muttered, reaching for my communicator. But the signal was jammed. Of course it was jammed. The Kryn were not amateurs, whatever else you could say about them. I switched channels, trying to reach Kelvik at the security station. Kelvik, we have a situation in corridor 12. 3 hostiles converging on the human. I see them. Kelvik's voice crackled back. Backup is 4 minutes out. Should I activate the emergency lockdown? I watched Marcus on the screen, still walking at that casual pace, apparently oblivious to the death squad waiting for him. No time. Just get someone down here fast. The Kryn warriors stepped out from their hiding spots, blocking the corridor ahead of Marcus. Each one was armed with plasma blades, and I could see the distinctive shape of neurotoxin guns holstered at their sides. These were not subtle operatives like the poison guy. These were soldiers, sent to make sure the job got done. Marcus stopped walking. I held my breath, waiting for him to panic, to run, to do literally anything that made sense. Instead, he sighed. Actually sighed, like they were a minor inconvenience. "Gentlemen," he said, and I could hear him through the corridor's audio pickups. "I am going to go out on a limb here and guess you are not looking for directions to the gift shop." The lead Kryn warrior activated his plasma blade with a menacing hum. "The Syndicate sends its regards. Human, you should not have interfered with our operations." "Oh, the poison thing?" Marcus set down his briefcase carefully, like he was worried about damaging it. In my defense, he did offer me a drink. It would have been rude to refuse. "You will die here," another warrior said, raising his neurotoxin gun. "Probably," Marcus agreed cheerfully. "But see, here is the thing about humans. We are really stubborn about that whole death business. It is like our least favorite thing." Then he moved. "I have seen a lot of combat in my time doing security work, right? I have watched professional soldiers, trained assassins, cybernetically enhanced mercenaries, but I had never seen anything quite like what Marcus Webb did in that corridor. He did not fight like a warrior. He fought like a physicist, having a very aggressive argument with the universe. He grabbed his briefcase and swung it at the nearest Kryn. Not at his head like you would expect, but at his knee. The warrior stumbled, and Marcus used that momentum to shove him into the second warrior. "You know what humans learned really early?" Marcus said, ducking under a plasma blade swing. "Leverage. It is amazing what you can do with basic physics." The third warrior fired his neurotoxin gun, but Marcus had already grabbed a wall panel, torn it off, seriously just ripped it right off the wall and used it as a shield. The toxin splattered harmlessly against the metal. "Also, environmental awareness," Marcus continued, and I realized with growing horror that he was giving a lecture while fighting for his life. "You are in a corridor with limited space, carrying weapons designed for open combat. That is poor tactical planning, friends. He threw the panel like a discus, hitting the gunman in the face. The warrior went down hard. The lead Kryn, plasma blade still active, lunged forward with a roar. Marcus stepped aside just barely and the blade sizzed past his shoulder. Then, and I am still not sure how he did this, Marcus grabbed the warrior's arm and used the Kryn's own momentum to slam him face first into the wall. Physics, Marcus said again, sounding slightly out of breath now.
Oh.
And also you telegraphed that attack from like 6 steps back. Your shoulder dipped, dead giveaway. The second warrior was back up now, raising his neurotoxin gun. Marcus kicked the fallen briefcase. It slid across the floor and tripped the warrior. As he fell, Marcus was already moving, grabbing the plasma blade from the first warrior's stunned grip. I really did not want to use one of these, Marcus said, looking at the blade with distaste. They are so inelegant, but desperate times and all that. He deactivated the blade and used the handle to knock the second warrior unconscious with one precise strike to the temple. The third warrior, blood streaming from his broken nose, struggled to get up. Marcus stood over him, still holding the deactivated blade handle. Here is a free tip, Marcus said. When ambushing someone, maybe do not choose a corridor covered in security cameras. Just, tactical advice for next time. He tossed the blade handle aside and picked up his briefcase, checking it for damage. The 3 Kryn warriors were down, groaning or unconscious, and Marcus looked like his biggest concern was whether his sandwich had survived. I stood there in the security station, my mouth hanging open, my translator desperately trying to supply me with appropriate words and failing miserably. That, I said slowly, that should not have been possible. Humans, Kelvik said over the comm, sounding equally stunned. What even are they? On the screen, Marcus stepped over the bodies and continued down the corridor. He stopped at a wall comm panel and pressed the button. Hello? Security? Yes. Hi. This is Marcus Webb. I seem to have encountered some gentlemen in Corridor 12 who are in need of medical attention and probably arrest. Could someone come collect them? Thank you so much. He released the button and kept walking. I checked his biosigns on my scanner. Elevated heart rate, increased respiration, adrenaline spike. But not panic, not fear, exactly. More like he had just finished an unexpected workout. Backup finally arrived. 4 security officers who stopped dead in their tracks at the sight of 3 unconscious Kryn warriors. Marcus was already turning the corner at the end of the corridor when he spotted me running to catch up. He paused, waiting politely. Mr. Webb, I said, trying to sound official and not like my entire worldview had just been thrown out an airlock. Survived, he suggested helpfully, straightening his tie, which had somehow gotten crooked during the fight. Yes, that does seem to be a habit of mine. Very irritating to people trying to kill me, I imagine. You did not have any weapons, I said weakly. Oh, I had plenty of weapons, Marcus corrected. Environment, psychology, their own overconfidence. Plus the briefcase. Never underestimate a quality briefcase. He held it up, showing me the dented corner. Though I am going to need to file an expense report for this one. Anyway, could you point me toward conference room 7? I have a meeting in 10 minutes and I really should not be late after all this excitement. I pointed down the hallway, my tendril shaking slightly. 3rd door on the left. Excellent. Thank you, officer. You have been tremendously helpful. Oh, and you might want to check your security protocols. 3 armed assassins getting into a diplomatic corridor? That seems like a process gap to me. Just some constructive feedback. He walked away whistling again, that same cheerful tune from earlier, leaving me standing in a corridor full of unconscious Kryn warriors and broken wall panels. I looked at Kelvik through my comm screen. He looked back at me. I am starting to think, I said slowly, that humans might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And they do not even need weapons to prove it, Kelvik added. Humans, I said with a combination of respect and absolute terror. Humans, Kelvik agreed. And somewhere down the corridor, Marcus Webb was probably already planning his next impossible survival. You know what the problem with being right is? It is absolutely terrible for your mental health. Because I had been right about the Kryn planning something big and now I was watching it happen in real time and I desperately wished I had been wrong instead. Conference room 7, the main negotiation chamber, erupted into chaos approximately 30 seconds after Marcus entered. 20, count them, 20 fully armed Kryn soldiers burst through 3 separate entrances simultaneously. They had clearly planned this down to the second. Plasma rifles, energy shields, combat armor, the works. This was not an assassination squad. This was a military operation. Within moments they had every delegate on their knees, hands behind their heads. The Vrixian ambassador, for all his fancy combat exosuit, could not even activate it before a Kryn had a plasma rifle pressed against his skull. The Heltorian envoy's bodyguards were disarmed in seconds. The Quillian representative's personal shield flickered and died, jammed by Kryn military-grade dampeners. All those weapons, all that armor, all that expensive security, and it meant absolutely nothing. The delegates were hostages now, every single one of them. "This is bad," I said to Kelvik over the comm watching from the security station. "This is extremely catastrophically bad." "Where is the human?" Kelvik asked. I scanned the room feed, looking for Marcus. There he was, kneeling with the others, hands behind his head, that briefcase sitting on the floor next to him. But here is the thing, he was not panicking. Everyone else looked terrified, rightfully so. But Marcus looked like he was thinking. The Kryn leader, a massive brute named Kravik, who I recognized from about 15 different wanted posters, stepped to the center of the room. "The summit is over," he announced. "The Syndicate is taking control of these negotiations. You will all remain as guests until our demands are met." "Guests," I muttered sarcastically. "Sure. Guests who happen to be kneeling on the floor with guns pointed at their heads. Very hospitable." "Should we send in tactical teams?" Kelvik asked. "And start a firefight with 20 hostages in the room? Command will never authorize that." I watched the feeds, feeling helpless. "We need a negotiator." That is when Marcus raised his hand. Actually raised his hand like he was in a classroom asking to use the bathroom. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I have a suggestion if anyone is interested." Kravik turned to stare at him. So did everyone else in the room. So did I, and I was not even there. "The human speaks," Kravik said, amused. "What could you possibly suggest?" "Well," Marcus said, still kneeling, still calm, "you are clearly in charge here, but hostage situations are tricky business. Lots of variables, communication breakdowns, potential for things to go sideways. As someone with diplomatic experience, I would be happy to serve as an intermediary between you and, well, literally everyone else, free of charge, even." There was a long silence. Then Kravik laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "You want to negotiate? You, the unarmed human who everyone said would die today? Still not dead," Marcus pointed out cheerfully. "Bit surprising, honestly. But yes, I think I could be useful, unless you would prefer to handle communications yourself. Which, no judgment, but I notice your translator is flickering. That is a GL7 model, right? Those things are notorious for dropping important context. Could lead to unfortunate misunderstandings." I leaned closer to my monitor. Is he seriously critiquing their equipment while they hold him hostage? "Humans," Kelvik said, which was becoming our default explanation for everything. Kravik considered this, probably running calculations about whether having a negotiator would make his job easier. Finally, he gestured with his rifle. "Fine, you may stand, human, but try anything, and I will kill you first, then everyone else." "Reasonable policy," Marcus said, getting to his feet and brushing off his knees. "Law is very clear. Good communication."
"I appreciate that in a hostage taker."
"So before we begin, can I just clarify your objectives? You want, what, control of the trade routes? Resource redistribution? A strongly worded apology?" "We want respect," Kravik growled. "The Syndicate has been treated as criminals for too long. We demand a seat at the table." "You already have a seat at the table," Marcus said, gesturing around the room. "You are literally at the summit. But I think I see the issue here. You want legitimacy, not just attendance. That is different." And then, right there, Marcus started doing this thing that I can only describe as weaponized conversation. He began asking questions, innocent-sounding questions, but each one carefully designed to expose problems in the Kryn's plan. "So, after you take control of negotiations, who exactly are you negotiating with? Because technically, holding everyone hostage means there is nobody left to make deals. That is more of a circular logic problem than a negotiation strategy. One of the Kryn soldiers shifted uncomfortably.
I saw it on the camera feed.
Marcus saw it too. Also, Marcus continued, I am curious about your chain of command here. Kravik is obviously in charge, but who is second in command? Just, for clarity. In case something happens to Kravik, we should know who to talk to next. Another soldier glanced at a third. There was tension there, I could see it now. Marcus was poking at their command structure, looking for cracks. And this whole respect thing, very valid concern. But have you considered that taking hostages might undermine your legitimacy argument? It is a bit, how do I put this delicately, contradictory. You want to be treated as legitimate diplomats while actively committing war crimes. That is a tough sell, marketing-wise. Silence. Kravik roared, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. Marcus was getting to him. Just trying to help, Marcus said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. But here is another thought. 20 soldiers, that is a significant deployment. Expensive too. All this equipment, the planning, the coordination, someone is funding this operation. I am guessing not everyone in the syndicate agreed. This was the best use of resources. A Kryn soldier to the left muttered something to his companion. Kravik whirled on them. Stay focused. Oh, internal disagreement, Marcus said, like he had just discovered something fascinating. That is interesting. Let me guess. Some members of the syndicate wanted political legitimacy through proper channels. Others wanted, the dramatic hostage route. And now here you are, committed to a plan that half your organization probably thinks is insane. I said silence. Kravik aimed his rifle at Marcus. Sure, absolutely, Marcus said. Not shutting up at all, but before you shoot me, and honestly you probably should because I am definitely making your day worse, consider this. Your team is already doubting. I can see it. 3 of your soldiers are questioning whether this was a good idea. 2 more are worried about the consequences. And at least 1 guy over there is thinking about his family and whether dying for the syndicate's pride is really worth it. How can you possibly know that? One of the soldiers blurted out. Body language, Marcus said simply. Humans are very good at reading it. Evolved trait. Helps us navigate complex social situations. Your postures, your glances, the way you keep checking exits. You are not a unified team. You are 20 individuals who were ordered here. And now you are realizing this plan might not work out the way Kravik promised. The room was getting tense now, but not between the hostages and the Kryn. Between the Kryn themselves. Marcus had turned them against each other using nothing but observations and questions. This is incredible, I whispered to Kelvik. He is taking apart their entire operation with just words. Psychological warfare, Kelvik said, sounding awed. The human is not fighting them. He is making them fight themselves. Kravik realized what was happening about 2 seconds too late. His soldiers were arguing now, questioning the mission, looking at each other with suspicion instead of unity. Marcus had poisoned their command structure faster than that assassin's drink at the reception. Enough, Kravik screamed. And his voice had that edge of panic now, the sound of a leader losing control. Kill the human. Kill him now. But here is the thing about Marcus Webb that I had finally figured out. He was always 3 steps ahead, and he had been positioning himself the entire time he was talking. Not obviously just little shifts in stance, small movements while everyone focused on his words. Now he was standing right next to a support column, with the Vrexian ambassador between him and most of the guns. The hostages, sensing violence coming, did what panicked people do. They moved. Some threw themselves flat. Others tried to scramble away. It created instant confusion. Bodies everywhere. Sight lines blocked. Marcus grabbed the Vrexian's combat exosuit controller, the external emergency release that all those suits have, and activated it. The suit powered down and locked up, turning the ambassador into 8 feet of immobile armored weight. Then Marcus shoved and the Vrexian toppled like a statue directly into the path of 3 Kryn soldiers. Physics, Marcus shouted, diving behind the support column as plasma fire erupted. He did not just, I started. He used the ambassador as a bowling ball. Kelvik finished. The Vrexian crashed into the Kryn soldiers, taking them down in a tangle of armored limbs. Marcus was already moving again, grabbing a chair, just a regular conference chair, and throwing it at the ceiling lights. Sparks exploded, and half the room went dark. Environmental control, I said, narrating for my own sanity now. He is systematically removing their advantages. In the chaos and flickering emergency lighting, Marcus moved like he had memorized the entire room layout, which I realized he probably had. He had been in there for at least 5 minutes before the Kryn arrived. Plenty of time for a human to analyze every tactical element. Kravik fired wildly, but Marcus was not where he had been a second ago. He was behind another column, then behind the conference table, then somehow he had Kravik's rifle barrel, pushing it toward the ceiling, just as the Kryn leader pulled the trigger. The plasma bolts scorched the ceiling panels. "You are strong," Marcus grunted, struggling with Kravik. "That is biology. But strength without leverage is just energy waiting to be redirected." He stepped aside suddenly, and Kravik's own momentum carried him forward. Marcus grabbed the rifle, used it as a fulcrum and flipped the massive Kryn leader over his shoulder. It should not have worked. The size difference alone should have made it impossible. But angles and leverage do not care about size, and Marcus executed it perfectly. Kravik hit the ground hard, and Marcus was already disarming him, hands moving in quick, efficient motions. Not fancy martial arts, just simple mechanical principles. Find the weak grip points. Apply pressure. Take the weapon. The rifle clattered away. "You know what is really unfair?" Marcus said, breathing hard now, standing over Kravik with the Kryn's own rifle pointed at him. "You brought 20 soldiers, all this fancy equipment, all this firepower, and I am still just a guy with decent reflexes and a really good understanding of physics. That has got to be frustrating for you." The other Kryn soldiers had frozen, weapons half raised, watching their leader on the ground. They were already demoralized from Marcus's earlier psychological assault. Now their commander was defeated and the unarmed human was holding a plasma rifle. "So here is what is going to happen," Marcus said, his voice carrying authority now, not cheerfulness. "You are going to put down your weapons very carefully and surrender to station security, who I am sure are right outside preparing to storm this room in about 30 seconds. Or, option 2, you try to fight, and we see how many of you really want to die for a plan that was doomed from the start. Your choice, but choose fast." One soldier lowered his rifle, then another, then a third. "Cowards," Kravik spat. "Survivors," Marcus corrected. "There is a difference, and honestly it is the more intelligent choice." The door burst open and station security poured in. 12 officers with stun weapons ready. They stopped, taking in the scene. Hostages mostly unharmed. Kryn soldiers surrendering. Marcus standing in the middle holding a rifle like he was unsure what to do with it now. "Oh, thank goodness," Marcus said, immediately handing the rifle to the nearest security officer. "I really do not like guns. Too loud. Too unpredictable. Give me a good conversation any day." I rushed into the room with the security team, my scanner out, checking for injuries. The delegates were shaken but alive. The Kryn were being restrained, and Marcus was already straightening his tie again, which had somehow survived everything. "Mr. Webb," I said, and my voice came out strangled. "What, how? I mean, that was exhausting," Marcus said, and I could see the adrenaline wearing off now, fatigue setting in. Honestly, I was making it up as I went along. Very stressful, but it worked out, so that is nice. "You saved everyone," the Vrexian ambassador said, having been helped out of his locked exosuit.
Hey!
"With no weapons, no armor, just yourself." "Well, not just myself," Marcus corrected. "I had your exosuit, that support column, those chairs, the lighting system, plenty of tools, just not conventional ones." Kelvik appeared in the doorway staring at the scene. He looked at me. I looked at him. "Humans," we said simultaneously. Marcus checked his watch, which had also somehow survived. "So, I hate to be that person, but is lunch still happening? 'Cause I am absolutely starving. And that sandwich in my briefcase is probably crushed by now."
Also, I should probably file an incident report.
"Right. This seems like the kind of thing that needs documentation." He said it so casually, like he had just finished a slightly tedious meeting instead of single-handedly dismantling a hostage situation. The station command arrived, demanding explanations. Delegates were giving statements, medical teams were checking everyone over, and Marcus Webb, the human diplomat who everyone thought would die within minutes of arriving, was asking about lunch and worrying about paperwork. I pulled out my security tablet and added one final note to his file, right there in the comments section. Threat assessment. Do not engage. Subject weaponizes everything, including logic, physics, and other people's expectations. Recommend treating as highly dangerous despite lack of conventional armaments. Marcus saw me typing and grinned. That is going in my permanent record, is it not? Oh yes, I said. Every word. Fair enough, he said, brushing dust off his jacket. Now seriously about that lunch. Humans. Absolutely terrifying. Completely insane. And apparently impossible to kill. What a species. 2 hours later, after all the statements had been given, after the Kryn had been hauled away to holding cells, after the delegates had been checked by medical teams and reassured by station command, I found Marcus in the observation lounge. He was sitting by one of the viewports, finally eating that lunch he had been asking about, watching the stars drift by. I approached carefully, like he might be some kind of dangerous animal, which, honestly, maybe he was. Mr. Webb, I said, I need to know something. He looked up from his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. Sure, Officer Zrath. What can I help you with? How? I sat down across from him without waiting for an invitation. How did you do all of that? The poison, the ambush, the hostage situation, you had no weapons, no armor, no augmentations. By every logical measure, you should be dead 3 times over. So what is the secret? What am I missing? Marcus swallowed, took a sip of water, and leaned back in his chair. The secret? There is no secret. I am just human, and humans are, well, we are stubborn little survivors who got really good at one particular trick. What trick? Thinking, he said simply. Not fancy quantum processing or enhanced neural networks, just regular everyday pattern recognition thinking. See, humans evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans. We were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most durable. We were just clever enough to stay alive when we should not have. I leaned forward, all 3 eyes focused on him now. Go on. So we developed this incredible ability to recognize patterns, to predict behavior, to manipulate social situations, Marcus continued. Every human is constantly running simulations in their head, analyzing data, making predictions. We look at body language and know what someone is thinking. We smell chemicals and know something is wrong. We see an environment and automatically calculate every way it could be used or weaponized. It is not special training. It is just how our brains work. You are saying every human can do what you did today? I asked, skeptical. To varying degrees, sure, Marcus said.
Some are better at it than others, obviously.
But the basic toolkit, pattern recognition, spatial awareness, social manipulation, persistence hunting mentality, that is standard human equipment. We weaponized thinking itself millions of years before we invented actual weapons. I sat back, processing this. It was terrifying. So when other species bring guns and armor, they become predictable. Marcus finished. Someone with a plasma rifle will use the plasma rifle. Someone in combat armor will rely on the armor. They have tools, so they think in terms of those tools. But someone with nothing, they have to think creatively, use everything, stay unpredictable. Koichizumba, someone with nothing. They have to think creatively, use everything, stay unpredictable. In a weird way, being unarmed made me more dangerous, not less. That is insane, I said flatly. Oh, absolutely, Marcus agreed cheerfully. Humans are completely insane by most species standards. We are persistence predators who never stop. We are pattern recognition engines who see threats everywhere. And we are social manipulators who can talk our way into or out of almost anything. We evolved to outthink things that were trying to eat us. That is not normal. And the confidence? I asked. You walked through this station like you owned it, smiling, making jokes. That was all strategy. Marcus's smile turned a bit rueful. Ah, well. About that, let me tell you something. Officer Zrath, something important about humans and confidence. I was terrified, Marcus said quietly. Every single moment today I was absolutely petrified. I blinked, all 3 eyes in sequence. What? The poison, the ambush, the hostage situation. My heart was hammering. My hands were shaking. My brain was screaming at me to run away and hide. I was scared out of my mind. He laughed, But it was different now. More honest. Humans just got really, really good at faking confidence. Because if you look confident, people believe you are confident, and then they make mistakes based on that belief. It is another survival trick. So the smiling, the jokes, all of it was performance, Marcus confirmed. Psychological warfare starts with yourself. Convince yourself you can survive. Project that confidence outward, and suddenly you have an advantage. Fake it until you make it, we say. Or in this case, fake it until everyone trying to kill you makes a fatal error. I stared at him, and then despite everything, despite the stress of the day, despite my entire worldview being shattered, I started laughing. It came out as a series of clicking sounds, but Marcus seemed to understand. You people, I said, still laughing, are absolutely, completely, entirely insane. You know that, right? Oh, definitely, Marcus said, grinning again as he finished his sandwich. But it works, so who is going to argue? Anyway, I should probably get going. I have actual diplomatic work to do now that everyone is not trying to kill me. Well, probably. The day is not over yet. He stood, grabbed his battered briefcase and headed for the door. I watched him go, shaking my head in disbelief. Kelvik appeared beside me, having witnessed the whole conversation. So what did you learn? That humans are walking nightmares disguised as friendly diplomats, I said, pulling out my tablet. I opened the station security protocols and started typing a new entry under threat assessment guidelines. What are you adding? Kelvik asked, reading over my shoulder. I finished typing and showed him the screen. It read, human threat level, unpredictable, standard security measures inadequate. Species weaponizes intelligence, environmental factors, and social dynamics. Armed humans are dangerous. Unarmed humans are potentially more dangerous. Never, under any circumstances, underestimate a species that evolved to outthink predators larger, faster, and stronger than themselves. They will find a way to survive, and you will not like how they do it. Kelvik read it twice, then nodded slowly. That is going to confuse a lot of people. Good, I said, saving the entry. Let them be confused. Maybe that will keep them cautious. Because I will tell you something, Kelvik. Marcus Webb walked into this station with nothing but a smile and a briefcase, and he survived 3 separate assassination attempts while saving 20 hostages. And he did it all while being terrified. Humans, Kelvik said, are universal explanation for everything we could not otherwise comprehend. Humans, I agreed, watching Marcus disappear down the corridor, probably already planning how to survive whatever came next. The galaxy's most dangerous species, and they do not even need weapons to prove it. They just need to think. And that, my friend, is the most terrifying weapon of all. Somewhere down the corridor, Marcus Webb was whistling again, heading to his next meeting, ready to negotiate peace treaties and trade agreements with nothing but his mind, and that unshakable, terrifying, completely fake confidence. The unarmed human had survived. Again. And I had a feeling he would keep surviving no matter what the galaxy threw at him. Because that is what humans do. They think, they adapt, they persist, and they absolutely refuse to die when logic says they should. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I was very glad they were on our side.